I'm going to show you behind the scenes of a website that I have built for an NGO that I run, that I set up I helped set up in 2002 originally, and kind of give you a little story of how our requirements from WordPress led to what we've got and how that then fits in with Civi. Hope to try and do that without boring you rigid, because it is the last session on a Thursday. So what I thought I'd do to start with is let's just show you a little video that so you don't have to think too hard, which shows you how the project started. Now it's about football, so I'm sure I'm right with the right audience here, but we are in the shadow of the Arsenal stadium, so it seems somewhat appropriate. Anyway, it's not quite football, as you'll discover. I should probably prefix this. The idea is a bit like the Olympic torch. So you've got that goes from Greece to wherever the Olympics is. This is a special football that goes from London to wherever the World Cup is overland, and this will show you roughly how. If it were. It's working.
You dribble the ball from one football from where to here? We started in Battersea Park, home of the first ever game of football to FA rules. You dribbled it all the way here. We dribbled it all the way here. Through France, Belgium, Holland, into Germany.
There's a prize for guessing all the countries.
Poland, Belarus, Russia. So what were the difficult countries to dribble through for the casual dribbler?
We went through Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan. Nowhere absolutely war-torn, but yeah, nervous to begin with.
So we're up. 5 sides.
We had a Russian translation of what our trip was about. And people would just warm to that. We would end up playing football in the streets with the local people and using a minaret as a goalpost at one point. You got it?
I was feeling easy with the ball, but I think this takes the biscuit. Did you pass it to each other, or did you have long periods where you did a pat there?
Oh yeah, for sure. Oh yeah, we were greedy all the way.
He's doing all these things, his little flicks on his feet. He's still there.
Playing the Tibetan monks in China's Gansu province at a secret venue.
They pulled us into a minicab and took us out to the mountains to some grasslands, using their robes to shield us from the Chinese checkpoints along the way. Football!
And there, 30 monks in a field, and being able to play a game of football for the first time on our trip on grass.
National passport before next year. That's right, yeah. website.
A pair of Englishmen reached their holy grail, the World Cup Stadium in Seoul. The end of a 3-month policy that started in Battersea Park, London, and wound its way through Russia, Central Asia and China to South Korea. Now Chris and Phil want the famous ball, signed by scores of people along the way, to be football's equivalent of the Olympic torch.
Well, gives you an idea of the humble beginnings of this project. And so in 2002, we built this website, which we believe was the world's first video blog. In fact, the term hadn't even been coined back then. So we ended up with a WordPress blog, which suited our purposes fine. Then 2006 rolled around and we had another journey with the ball. We thought, well, we're going to need another blog. So, well, what are we going to do? Do we have two separate domains? So we thought, no, hang on, there's this thing called WordPress multi-site, where you can have multiple sites within a single WordPress instance. So that's what we did. So we created the 2006 site, but then what multi-site does is you have a main site and you have sub-sites. So you've got, so this is our main site with it. So this is the main site, and you can see it's got a network admin. It's got all sorts of things that you can do with that. In 2006, Spirit Football Germany was founded, and they then wanted another site within the same system, but they also wanted multi-site. Oh my God, I'm just scratching my head going, oh, what am I going to do here? So I implemented something called multi-network WordPress. So this is another network. So this is our CIC site within the system. They all use the same user table. So one login, and you're logged into all the different sites. And you'll see, so that if I now go to the Spirit Football Germany site, it is in the same WordPress instance, but it's its own multi-site. Not only that, but you can see that the language has changed. So it's multilingual. And this site runs what's called Commons in a Box. I helped develop this with CUNY, which is City University of New York. They have like 40,000 students within a sort of Commons in a Box, it's called. And it's like a mini Facebook, essentially. You have users, groups, group documents, group blogs, personal messaging. You can switch on and off all these functions. So here, for example, we have, it's going to have to all be in German, but some of it's pretty obvious. So you've got groups, for example. So here's the groups list, and I've stripped out all the data here so that I didn't compromise anybody's privacy. So this is a copy of the site with almost everything stripped out apart from what I want to show you. So you've got groups here, for example. So this is an open group, and I can announce something in the group, and oh, my internet's gone. Hey ho, never mind. So I can say hello, everyone, and post much like Facebook functions. There we are, and it also appears in the page without refreshing and whatnot. So you've got forums for discussion. You can hang forums off groups. You can, what you can do with it is enormous. Like, there's got this thing called Rendezvous, which allows you to do like doodle polls, to find the best time for a meeting or something. And so Commons in a Box works really well for Spirit Football Germany because they've got about 40 members. They have discussions in under various topics. What I wanted to show you is as we got bigger, we actually have an organisation in Brazil now as well. As we got bigger, we realised we needed a bit more organisation behind all of this. So we'd gone from humble beginnings, and this WordPress install, it got bigger and bigger. Works really nicely. So we've got different sections for different organisations. And then Civi hangs off the Germany site for now. And I just wanted to show you how that functions without hopefully getting too complicated. In fact, I've got my high-tech speaker notes. Okay, so the first plugin I should show you probably is this. Wake up. Yeah, this one. These are all available in the WordPress repo. So if you do have a WordPress install, you can just go to Add Plugin, and you've got a working Civi install. You can just go to Add Plugin, and it'll automatically install it from the WordPress repo. And any updates you'll automatically be notified of them by WordPress, which is quite nice, has to be said. So this one, Profile Sync. So in WordPress, if I'm a new user and I want to sign up here for the Spirit Football site, I go to my registration page. Joe Blogs is signing up, and his user an email address here, some password. They match? Yes, they do. Okay. Joe Blogs. Okay, and I'm going to. So I've signed up. I should receive an email saying, in theory, please. Could be interesting if this doesn't work. Okay, well I thought this might happen, so I've got a test user that I created before. Okay, so you've signed up. What you will see in Civi now, if we go to the Civi back end, we've got these users here. Okay, let's go to. I can never remember how to do these. Okay, so let's just. I've stripped out all the users bar a few, so it shouldn't be too difficult to find these things. So what happens when you register is that the data that you register with is logged in both WordPress, then in BuddyPress, which is the kind of social plugin that we're using here that creates this mini Facebook essentially. But it also then syncs to Civi. So in here somewhere I should have Joe Blogs. It won't until I actually log in, that's why. And it's not sending me the email. Can I override that? I think, no, look, I've lost my Wi-Fi, that's why. That'll explain it. So I presume you're all familiar with these lists of stuff. I mean, our needs are actually quite simple in a lot of respects. No, it's not having... You've all got your smartphones on. All right, well, I'm going to ignore that for a minute then and turn Wi-Fi off and ignore that. So, right, so we'll assume that his data's come in. So when I signed up with my test user, I got an email back saying, please confirm your email address. And when I did that, I could then log in. And this user, test user, appeared in the back end here. So if we go and edit him, or her, it just happened to be me. So so if I change anything in the back end here, so I want to change his name from being test to I don't know, Bob user. Let me save that. And in our list of users here, we should see that test user is now Bob user, as you can see. So the sync works both ways. If I now change my name in WordPress to Bob Test, no, it doesn't matter about that. You'll see the sync works both ways when I refresh this page here. So instead of test user, we should see. So everything's kept in sync for profiles. So there's Bob Test now. So, and that will work with email address and website, and you can extend it to any other profile fields that you want to, which is really handy. So you know the data in Civi and the data in WordPress and the data in BuddyPress are all held synchronized, which should really be, I guess, in core, but isn't. One thing, so the next, that's all that plugin does, essentially. There's no back-end options or anything. You install it, done.
A question there.
Sure.
So we have Civi on a Drupal instance, and we have WordPress set up in a similar way you've got, but without Civi.
Mm-hmm.
Currently, people log in with simple sign-on, so single sign-on. If we install the profile sync plugin on our WordPress site, obviously with simple sign-on, the profiles aren't syncing between our Drupal/Civi with the WordPress user table.
No, you'd have to hang Civi off the WordPress instance rather than the Drupal instance. You could do it with the with Ajax calls, but I would recommend against it. I'd hang Civi off the WordPress instance if that's the sync that you want. So the next one, this admin utilities one, does very little except that, for example, it fixes the menus. So I don't know about you, but from being a sort of slightly OCD designer, I like my menus not to overlap when they drop down. So these don't do that. They sort of appear the way they should. And those little dividers in the standard thing, they highlight when you roll over them and things. So anyway, it doesn't do much, but you know, for us sensitive, creative types, these things hurt. So it does that, but it also does one more thing, which is quite nice, which is that when you install Civi in WordPress, it provides a button on your post field. So if I wanted to create a new post here, sure.
Can I ask that you change to English? Or is that not
No, it's not possible. But I tell you what's nice about this is I'm quite keen for you not to know all the details here, just the fact that it works, rather than this is part of my strategy for not getting too techie, because as soon as it's all in English, I know I'm going to get a welter of questions about that. Just assume this is the post screen, and so I've actually disabled the Civi button on here because I don't want it visible. And this plugin allows you to do that. So, for example, with forum posts or whatever, you don't want the Civi shortcode button to appear because it just doesn't make any sense in the context of a this is the back end for this plugin. It does a few other little bits and bobs. So in WordPress multi-site, it actually prevents Civi from functioning on sub-sites because actually that's still broken. I'm hoping to go to the sprint next week and start, the process of making that function. But yeah, so you can see here, you can choose the kinds of content types if you're a Drupal person, that it's a post type in WordPress that you want the button to appear on. So it only will appear on pages in this instance. So if I go, thankfully I speak German, so I kind of know where to go here. But there, so you can see there's a CiviCRM button available, and I can insert a shortcode of whatever sort, event page, or a profile, or the other thing you can see from this is where translation fails, because obviously my German folk are like, oh, suddenly I'm having to read in English, and it's quite useful. It's a quite useful thing to be able to set up stuff in other languages and see where the shortcomings are and where the translation needs filling out and stuff. So that's all it does. The few little things that aren't in Civi, but make life a lot easier when working with WordPress. And that's about it for that plugin. The next one's a biggie, or relatively big one. I'm going to keep it very simple here, though, and just show you one or two things that it does. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Civi OG Sync. Have you come across this? It's in Drupal. There's a module called Organic Groups where you can form groups, and much in the same way I described for BuddyPress. So if you want to discuss a certain thing, or if you're an organisation with, with chapters all over the place, you could make those into organic groups with memberships and their own content and all sorts of things. Now, so there's a Drupal kind of glue module called CiviOG Sync, which syncs the memberships of these groups to group memberships in Civi. And this does exactly the same thing, except between BuddyPress groups and Civi groups. So, if I create a group, for example, which can be, this is a BuddyPress group on the front end of the site here. So we'll call it CiviCon, shall we? And we'll just skip through some of these settings here. There's a whole bunch of stuff you can do to prettify groups. So it's an open group. That'll do. I think we can probably go from there, actually. I'll scrap all the rest of it. So there, we've got our CiviCon group. Now, when I go to Civi, and I look at the groups, I apologise for the German, but you can this is the groups list. That's all it is. Which I'm sure you're familiar with, but in English. So you can see that two groups have been created in the same way that OG Groups does. I've got the CiviCon group, which is a mailing list group. So anybody who now signs up to this BuddyPress group gets added to the mailing list group, which is a really nice thing. So you can track the usage of groups on the front end of the WordPress site in Civi with these group memberships. So if you want to send a mail out to all the members of a certain BuddyPress group, you can do that just by sending it to this particular group. Now,
does it turn, when you created that group in BuddyPress just now, does it become a mailing list by default?
The member group is a mailing list group by default, yes. The administrator group is an access control group.
And they are smart groups.
They're not smart groups.
They are standard groups.
They're standard groups, yeah. So they don't need cron to refresh them or anything.
But they synchronise it. If someone left the BuddyPress group, would they leave?
Well, let's do that, shall we? So if I log in as test user,
Static groups act like smart groups.
let me sign in as test user. Let me go to my groups, and I'm going to join this group. There's my group. I click the button. I join the group. Hopefully, there we go. So it's joined me to the group. Let's refresh in here, and we should see that the member group should have two members in it. And indeed it does. There we are. So there are the contacts in the group. Now, one thing that this can do that OG Sync can't do is the reverse procedure. So, for example, if I remove, oh, I think I might need to do it from his profile. I can probably do it from there, but I can't remember how. So, if you're viewing a profile and you say, oh, I don't want, I want to boot them from this group, you can do that from this, from Civi itself. So, okay, here's the CiviCon, right, so I'm going to ditch him out of that group, the CiviCon group, and in here, let me go into here, we should see that in the membership here, he's gone. So it works both ways, which is quite nice. So if I were to add him to the administrator group in Civi, so for example, I group a CiviCon administrator and I add him to the CiviCon administrator, he automatically becomes an administrator of the WordPress group. So if we now go here, there's Bob Test. So this, and you can also see he's been automatically added to the member group. So there's nice little things like that. So it doesn't matter where you do what you do, which is something that I'm quite keen on making happen. That it shouldn't really matter where you use the functionality. It should just stay in sync if at all possible.
Are these codes written in a plugin manner? Is it a WordPress plugin or extension?
Yeah, it's a WordPress plugin. Yeah, yeah.
Are they uploaded somewhere on the GitHub? Are they shareable?
They're on GitHub, or they're in the WordPress plugin directory if you want to install them into your WordPress instance. If you're a developer, yeah, there's a link to the GitHub repo. They all have GitHub repos, so that one, I've got no internet.
But they won't be on CiviCRM extension?
I just put them on the extensions directory a couple of days ago. Yeah, I didn't have right access to it before, but yeah, that's done now. They're all there. So whatever groups you create, whatever combinations of things happen within those groups, you can always track it using Civi, and you can use Civi then to fire out email shots or grant access or whatever it is. Lastly, well, not lastly necessarily.
Can I just ask about the buddy group? Is that a standard thing, a buddy group?
WordPress is a plugin for WordPress that creates a social network within WordPress. So it's like having your own Facebook, but you're not handing over your data to Facebook. Your community is on your site, which is how we prefer to have it. If we, I remember GeoCities. Don't know how people lost a lot of stuff when that went down. So whereas if you've got your own data, you can guarantee it's yours. And we've been doing this for so long that some of these huge organisations do really disappear. And we lost tons of data from Ning. I think we tried to. Ning went down as well. There was another attempt at a Facebook type situation. So we now just keep it all on our own servers because it's safer that way.
So just at the moment we have a community forum on our WordPress site, but it's all managed from Civi. So with a buddy press, you could theoretically just do it on WordPress. You
Yes.
don't have to set the access through Civi.
No.
Right, okay.
Having said that, that's what I'm coming on to next, which is this MemberSync, a MemberSync plugin. Because a lot of organisations have members, and you can use Civi to manage your. You probably use it to manage your membership. What you can do with the MemberSync plugin is you can grant or revoke access to certain functions or features of WordPress through membership. So my user just signed up and he doesn't have membership yet. So if he looks at his groups, he sees these groups. So there's the CiviCon group and the open group. He can tell which groups he's a member of. Minor group, and there's my groups. Now, if I grant test user here, let's grant him a membership. Where was he? There we are. Mitgliedschaften, apparently. So let's all right, let's remove him from this initially. Right. I've just granted him membership, and now you can see he's part of a BuddyPress group called a members group, which is a hidden group. He wouldn't have seen that group in the list. So if I'm logged out, I won't see that group. You can have different kinds of groups in BuddyPress. You can have public groups, private groups, and hidden groups. So you've got public groups which anyone can join as long as they're a member of the site, or as long as they're registered on the site. Private groups which you have to be invited to see, and you can see that they exist, but you can't see any of their content. And then hidden groups where you can't even see that they exist. So this members group is an example of that. And so by granting him membership, we could have done this on the front end using a Civi form. So when he signed up for membership, he got an automatic membership in there, and it will automatically join him to that BuddyPress group. But you could also restrict your content so that, I don't know, let's have a post on the blog, for example, that I only want members to see. So I create a new post, and I say only members, hello. And here I can say, well, only members are allowed to see that group. I publish that. And being a member, he should see this. Yeah, only members. If I now take away his membership, where were you? Yeah, I'll take away his membership. Or if it expires or whatever else happens to that membership during the course of it, and he comes back to the site, he will no longer see that post. So you can, and you can bracket content within a page too. So you can say, right, here's a big long page, but only this bit can be seen by members.
Can you specify different types of membership? Or is it?
Yes, any.
So if you were running 10 memberships, but only 5 of them, you can allow them to see certain things on your WordPress site.
Yes, absolutely.
Fine.
Yeah. So, and all the software here will adapt depending on the number of memberships. So this drop-down list here will populate with all the other kinds of membership.
Okay.
So if you've got like lifetime members or premium members or whatever else it is, you can then say, well, premium members and lifetime members can see this content, but nobody else can.
Right.
So you can adapt it that way. Equally, you can like with this one, I've made a little custom thing that hangs off the membership plugin, which joins them to a BuddyPress group when they get a certain kind of membership. You can do anything like that if you want to. And we found this incredibly useful for tracking memberships, for tracking the behavior of people on the website, and then also reacting to that and sending stuff out to people who are, who've expressed an interest in this kind of thing or that kind of thing. And it really works nicely with just those 4 plugins on board. What I could do, I guess that's what's stable and that's what's out there in the WordPress repos. So feel free, go ahead, install those. If you want to see a kind of roadmap of where I'm taking this, at least, it would would be firstly with events. So Spirit Football Germany have a very active calendar. And as you can see, they're doing courses in schools, they're doing fair play football tournaments, etc., etc. Now, they don't use people don't sign up for these things, but they wanted to maintain attendance lists. So we use Civi for the attendance lists, but it's not on the front end. However, all of this stuff does indeed sync to Civi. So they're Einstellungen, I think. There we go, these ones. So every time I create an event in WordPress, it creates a corresponding event in Civi. And in fact, if I create a repeating event, it will create the requisite repeating events in Civi too. So here you can see, here's our list of forthcoming events in Civi, and we can track usage. And because it's mostly kids, we don't really want to use the front end of the website to do that, but the back end's fine. So if I, for example, let's go for events here, Termina, I think, we're in network there, okay, here we are, Termina, okay. Oh, in terms of this, I just wanted to show you how, because one of the reasons I wrote this was because it was so difficult to create locations for events in Civi. I found it really hard, particularly the geolocation part of it, and I was really happy to see some of those extensions being demoed, because for me you have to go find a third-party tool to find the latitude and longitude and copy and paste that and stuff. So if I'm going, I don't know, what we called here? Resource, is it? And let's, it's German, of course, but we can probably use N10LT, I think that's my friend's house. Oh, I've got no internet. This thing automatically pins on a Google map. As soon as you enter a postcode, it'll automatically pin it. As soon as you hit save on the venue, it will populate Civi location with all that data. If you update the venue, it'll update the Civi location. When you create the event and then you associate it with that venue, it automatically does that in Civi. So you end up with this list here. As you can see, all these locations for these events are locations in WordPress. All the events have their exist basically in WordPress here. So if I want to view an event, the nice thing about this is that because it's on the WordPress front end, you can have comments on an event on the front end. Very simple calendar that is just plug and play. It will auto generate. You get event categories which sync with, what do they call them? Event types, yes. So event categories sync with event types. There are some issues with it. One of which is that when you create a repeating event in Civi, I can't find a way to get at the rules that create the repetition, so I can't transfer that over to WordPress. I can transfer over the resulting events singly, but I can't find, anyway, that's why this isn't out in the WordPress repo, because it's not complete. I don't consider it stable enough as yet, but hopefully I can talk to you, some of the developers next week, and see what can be done. The other one I quickly wanted to talk about is one called Civi Mail Sync, which is when in WordPress I've written a plugin. It works with 4.5, but 4.6 all the mail stuff changed, and I didn't have enough time to update it. But what happens is that every time a mailing gets sent, it creates a post in WordPress of a custom post type of the content of that mailing. Now, when you go to the site as a user and you go to the mailing archive, you get just the mailings you've been sent. What's nice about that is you can view them on the web, which is currently broken in Civi WordPress at least. Those links to view the email on the web don't work. But also you can actually search through your archive of mailings, and it's really nice. But it's one I want to return to, and is not one I can demo. But that's the roadmap. The events sync I think would be really nice to complete, and mailing probably needs some updating. On that note, that's where we're at with the site. We've got 2014 in the pipeline, which is quite scary. But one of the nice things that happened during the evolution of this project is we teamed up with Special Olympics, and they're a global organisation. We visit so many countries that we need to partner with global organisations, and they really took to the project. They love it. Every time the ball comes into a country, they use it to promote Special Olympics, get politicians to promise resources and funds and what have you. So we kind of support them in that. And they produced this video in Colombia, which I think would be quite nice to see. The soundtrack's by New Model Army, who wrote this tune for us, which is quite ironic because I used to have them on the back of my leather jacket when I was a punk back in the day. So I was chuffed to bits that they did that. And here it is. This is what they did just in Colombia. Just bear that in mind.
Back to generations.
bear in mind that was one country, you know, and just a fraction of the people that came across this ball. It got over 20,000 signatures. This ball. I mean, it's an extraordinary thing by the end of it. And it, you know, I remember arriving in one place. I can't remember where it was. Zambia, I think, and we had a meeting with the president there, and his advisor was like, "But there's nowhere for the president to sign." No, he signs on the ball with everybody else, and that's what's really nice about it. It's a real leveler. You know, it doesn't matter whether you're black, white, you know, disabled, not. You know, everybody can kick this thing and head it, and so that's really it. I hope I've given you a basic overview of the integration that exists, where I'd like to see it go. There are a bunch of other plugins I haven't discussed, but I'm probably not the person to do that, given that I haven't had any involvement with them. I think there's a paid plugin from, I think they're called CiviVIP or something. You might know a bit more about that. But yeah, I mean, you can do an awful lot with WordPress and Civi. Don't let it put you off.
Very quick question.
Yes.
Do the plugins ever cause you any trouble when you update either system? Because we have real trouble. It just keeps breaking every time one or the other is updated. It seems to break everything, and I'm not an expert. I don't know why these things keep breaking, but it clearly can work really easily. Yes,
I mean, I would always recommend backing up before you upgrade. Yeah, if it goes, you know, if it all goes pear-shaped, you've at least got something to fall back on and start again. Yes, it does happen. I mean, you know, my advice would be to curate the plugins as much as you can. I mean, Commons in a Box is a curated set of plugins that CUNY develop. So we know what's in that package. We've developed all those plugins. If you just go ahead and install any old plugin that you know somebody said, "Oh, that would be nice," well, I wouldn't recommend that any more than installing random software on your computer. You know, I think with
that's where the plugins come from initially, that is potentially causing it.
Yes, I mean, I would always recommend having somebody technical who can just cast an eye over a plugin and see how well or otherwise it's been written. I mean, I obviously tend to write my own, but there are certain things I couldn't possibly write. I mean, you know, this Commons in a Box thing it's a huge multi-person effort. But what's nice is you won't get an upgrade to it until all the plugins have been, you know, looked at to make sure they all work together with the latest version, and then it'll say, okay, good to go, good to upgrade. So you might, you know, there are systems like that, but yeah, I wouldn't just install any old plugin. Yeah, I mean, WordPress has its challenges. You know, Drupal does too. Yeah, I guess we ended up with WordPress because we started off blogging, and you know, it grew as we grew. WordPress grew too, and we never saw a need to move to a different system. And you know, and then when Civi started to work with WordPress, I basically rewrote the Civi plugin, the Civi WordPress plugin, to make it actually function properly with WordPress. And then off the back of that, realized I could port some of the existing Drupal plugin modules to WordPress very, very straightforwardly, because a lot of the code is already written. And yeah, and people keep coming to me saying, "Oh, will you do this? Will you do that?" And
generally, sorry to interrupt. Generally, when you update, whatever system you have, you can run into problems. But a simple advice would be just to make a test environment before they do it, so you know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I would. That's very sound advice. In fact, probably 2 test environments. Yeah, I mean, what I do is I have a development environment, then I have what's called a staging environment, and then live. So, so you can test in various different scenarios. So dev, you can do anything on and break it as much as you like. Staging, you have to be a bit more careful with than live. Obviously, you don't want to mess with that until you've established that what's working on staging then will also work there. I think that's probably a pretty good methodology for any kind of web development, have that 3-stage process. How many of you out of interest do run WordPress sites? Oh, well, okay. Preaching to the converted here. Thought I'd have some Drupal guys in.
Thank you very much, Christian.
Good.